G'day guys, welcome back to the channel again. This is going to be part 6 of the Yak 55M build series. In this video we are starting to get to some of the fun stuff, and by that I mean we're going to start planning and working out how to mount the OS GT33 engine onto the Yak. This is an important part, mainly because this model was designed mainly to have about a 120 size 2-stroke glow engine, whereas I am going to be using, as I said, the OS GT33 engine, which is a 33cc engine that is 2-stroke unleaded, and it has a different kind of mounting system compared to your traditional glow engine. So we have things over here. So we have the engine in the box, we have the engine mounts, and here is the engine in all its awesomeness. So with the traditional glow engine, usually have mounts on the side here, and on here you'll have two like nylon kind of engine mounts that the engine bolts onto on the side, whereas the actual engine mounting points are at the back here, and you have these standoff mounts. So what we have to do here is we've got to align the engine so that the crankshaft here is in line with the rest of the fuselage, so when the cowl goes on, it fits correctly. And we may have to do a few little modifications here and there, I don't know, but that is what we're going to be tackling today. As well as here we have the fuel tank, and I will go through with you the setup procedure for it. So what I will do is we'll do the tank first, and then we'll get onto the engine. Alright, now we have our fuel tank here, and if you get a Dubrow tank, what comes in the tank, you get your 2 brass tubes, get some fuel tubing, you get your clunk, you get the bung. If you can't see it there, just try and put it somewhere so you can see. There we go. And you get the bung retainer, the front and rear bung retainer, which basically compresses it to stop it from popping out of the tank. Now, because I am using an engine that runs on 2-stroke unleaded, this and this are not needed or can't be used, for the fact that these are designed for use with glow fuel, so your nitro and methanol based fuel. These the unleaded fuel will eat these away and rot them, so you can't use these. And also I've decided not to use the included clunk for it. So for this I will be using a Dubrow sintered bronze filter clunk. I prefer these over the one that comes with the tank, because you got to make sure that you get the alignment on the standard. If you look closely, you can see a little slot that's designed so it'll suck up every drop of fuel, whereas this just has to be in any fuel and it'll just suck it up. So I'll be using that. And we have here, this is a Dubrow, what's called the Dubrow Gas Stopper. So this is the gas bung that is intended for use with the unleaded fuel. And as you can see, they're different colors. This is a lot harder, like I can squeeze this really good. It's more like a silicone based stopper, whereas this is just a really hard rubber. Okay, and importantly, you need Tygon fuel tube. This here, you could, I mean, this is I get this. This is a Dubrow one. I mean, you can obviously get this from, say, a lawnmower shop. Just make sure it is the internal diameter is suitable for the brass tubing. So what we'll do first is we'll get our tube ready, and what we will do is we will put on our clunk. Now, it is very hard to put stuff on, so if you're finding it difficult, what you can do, and do this very carefully, I'll just do, is you can heat the fuel tubing up just so it becomes a little bit soft. And just makes it that little bit easier to put on. And so you wait, what will happen is that fuel tube will get soft and become easier to slide on, and you just give it a few seconds to harden up again, and it'll just grip onto the clunk there. So now what we'll do is we'll measure, we'll get the bit of fuel tubing that comes with the tank and measure it. It's not easy to cut this stuff. There we go. Okay. Now we will then put a little bit. We'll put it onto the tube. Now, so that's that done there. It's all nice and neat. Now on your tank, with a permanent marker, when it comes out, you've got two holes on the stopper here. So, well, there are three holes, but you'll only be using two because the bung here only has two holes. So you will want to write down, or just have as an initial, which one is fuel and which one is the vacuum hose or vent hose. So here, as you can see, I have fuel and vent. So now, one of the next things we'll need to do, and we'll need to do this carefully, is we'll have to bend slightly this bit of fuel, this bit of brass tubing. So when it's in the tank, it'll be up slightly, so it can, so the end it'll breathe, but fuel won't want to come dripping out the vent hose. So very carefully, so that's all you need, just a slight bend up there, and we will put it through the correct hole here. Now take your time doing this. Probably wouldn't even hurt to put a little WD on it just so it'll slide. A little lube goes a long way.
That's what she said!
Okay, now we'll need the, I should put that out of the way. So now we need our backstopper. We'll put that on first because then we have to put, and make sure you have it around the right way. Alright, now put this across. Then with a screwdriver, we don't do this up fully, just so that it what you could even do if you want is put a little tubing and you can always heat that tubing too. But remember, don't bend it to a point where it cuts itself off, because then you'll just create a vacuum in the tank and it'll cause the engine to stall. Alright, so that is bent up. Now we'll just put that in. Then it's just a case of doing it up as tight as you can. Obviously you don't want to do it stupidly tight, because you can break it. But there you go guys, it's as simple as that. So that is the clunk in the tank. Make sure it moves around nicely. Obviously you can make some adjustments here and there, but that's essentially it guys. It's as simple as that. Okay guys, so in this part, when it comes to mounting this kind of engine, you need to have a template of some description. One of the things I'm going to be doing is using some paper. I'll do that a little bit off camera, but for the moment what I have done is, when it comes to this style of engine, so we have here, so this is here we have the engine, we have the mounts attached. I will need to make a few adjustments because we have the choke here and that protrudes a little bit, that actually touches the firewall. But what I've done is using a ruler, which is just well, it's not a ruler, it's just an old worn out helicopter blade, but it comes in handy with the straight edge. So what I've done here is from each corner drew across. So what it's done is it's given me a point of reference, so I can then get an idea of just roughly where to place the engine, sort of thing like that. as you can possibly see there, the choke is touching the hole, so I'll need to get a Dremel and open that up a little bit. And so what I will then need to do is get, I'll just close, so what I will need to do is, I have some cardboard here, and I will place, so I've got the engine on the cardboard here, and this is going to serve as a template for the engine mounting. And the whole idea is so I can take this template and place it onto the firewall, so that way I can mark the holes for where the engine needs to mount onto. Now, one thing I will have to do is I am going to, once I have the engine mounted, or the holes, the correct holes, I'll temporarily mount the engine to make sure it's all correct, but I'm going to then have to take the engine off, because this engine has a wraparound pit style muffler, as you can see here. And how it works, so I'll just hold that there, I'll just take that screw out. So how it works is it sits like that there. Now, as you can see, there's a fairly large bulge because of the style of muffler, and what's going to happen is it's going to foul on the engine mount here on the firewall. So I'm going to have to do the exact same kind of modification that I did to my extra over there, and what I'm going to need to do is cut along an angle off there so that the muffler can fit. So that means then I'm going to have to mark it out, cut it, and then I'm going to have to make reinforcement on the inside of the firewall. So what I might have to do is on the inside here add some extra bracing just to strengthen it, and under here as well, because and it'll be the same as what I did to my extra. So, and I've had that extra for 8 years roughly, maybe a little bit longer, and I've never had a fault with it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pause here, cut out the template, we'll mark it out and so forth, and we'll be back. Okay, so what I've done here, so this is the simple template that I made. So basically all I did is, because this is cardboard, I got the engine and on the cardboard got it and pushed down firmly, and what that did is that made, with the mounts there, that then made an indent into the cardboard. So then with a permanent marker, which I have now up, so then with my permanent marker, the engine off, and just did the holes and then did the crisscross. So, and what this little dot here in the middle represents is the crankshaft. So if you look, if I can get the camera to focus, if you look there, so we have our crankshaft and we have our engine mounts. It's a bit hard to try and line this up on camera, but when you're doing it by eye, so you can tell that this, as it crosses, that's the middle for the crankshaft. So that's what that dot there represents, is the crankshaft. So we want to have that in the actual middle of the actual entire fuselage. So if I can, without falling over, It's a bit hard to tell, but as you can see, it's a bit hard to get the angle right because I'm looking through the screen here, but I've got the crankshaft area right in the middle of the fuselage, so that way when the cowl goes on, that will be right in the middle. So what I've done as well, so I've done the crisscrosses on the firewall, but then I've measured halfway across, so then we have the middle of the firewall here, so it all intersects at that point right there. So that is the middle. So now what I'm going to do is do my best to drill the holes for the engine mount. Alright, so as we can see here, I have the engine temporarily mounted. At the moment I only just have the 2 screws here at the top here just holding the engine to the firewall. Now you can see the muffler here. I thought I was going to get lucky. I honestly thought I wouldn't need to make any adjustments or modifications to the firewall. However, we have here, so I have the rear bolt through but not the front bolt for the exhaust. It just taps the underneath the firewall, and you probably can't see it here on camera unfortunately because of the light, but it's off by about 3 millimeters or so. So that means I've got to take about 3 or 4 millimeters off the firewall here, which is not a lot. When I built my extra, because the extra was meant for, you could put a DLE 35 in it, and the DLE 35 comes with a side mount or just an ordinary muffler that just goes around the side here. And as you can see, this is a wraparound muffler, so that means that I had to take a big chunk of the firewall out and then brace it and modify it and strengthen it and so forth. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the engine off again, and then I am going to carefully cut out a section about around here and very carefully cut it out and then come back. Alright guys, so now as we can see, I haven't actually got the engine firmly bolted in. As you can see, it's just moving about, but it is in to the point. Obviously it was in perfectly before but so it's in, it's just on there at the moment. However, as we can see, I've taken a bit out of the firewall and I'm going to paint it, but what I've done is I've cut it out and gone along, and what I've also done inside, it's a little bit messy at the moment, but down in there I've got some plywood down there just to brace it, and then I've just got a heap of 5-minute epoxy and just filled it in, and I'll probably end up painting it after that. I mean, I could probably just leave it as it is, but I think my OCD is gonna want me to paint it. So the engine mounts up nicely, and as you can see now, what I'm doing currently is just toying with where to put the ignition box. So this is the ignition module here, so I'm going to end up mounting it into the right here, and I'm just used, so I'm going to use, I haven't taken it off yet, but I'm going to use some vibration absorption gel right there, and the lead's just going to come down, snake around, and I mean it's just put in at the moment because I'm just mocking it up, and that's going to sit there like so. And what I'm going to end up doing is well, I've got to try and figure out how to get, I have this small Savox servo, and I'm going to try and figure out how to get the choke to work. It's going to be a little cumbersome. I might have to mount it here, or have it make something so the servo have a mount of some description, maybe have it sit like so, and so that way it's over the choke lever just there, because that's where the choke is. And I may end up, it all depends on if the ignition box interferes with the servo and causes some issues. So I'm not too sure. This is why I've got to test things. So at the moment I'm going to work out a place where to put the servo and for the choke, and I may even end up having to move the ignition box over here maybe. But the next part I need to do now is, so now we have the engine loosely mounted into its spot where it's going to stay. I then have to, just in here you can see from the dot, I have to now drill a decent hole for the throttle. So we have our throttle here, and then the rod's is going to travel along to the servo. So hopefully that will work well, and I really hope to try and get the servo for the choke to work as well, because like I said, with my extra, how I usually have it is there's a rod here that I'll flick and I'll pull, like I'll stick my finger into the cowl and pull the choke, but obviously that's not going to work with the dummy radial engine. So I need to figure out how to get the servo to work for the choke here, so it can just, I could just flick a switch and yeah, choke will choke off, choke on. So it's just a matter of testing and procrastinating. So what's next for the moment? So at the moment this is just mocked up at the moment here. What I need to do now is figure out how to get this tank installed, because that's just, oh, that's not good, that's going straight into the carburetor. Okay, so I'll just pull that back a pinch. So what we have here is, as you can see, the larger size hole, because this is a slightly smaller tank than the one that comes with the kit. I have to make a different mold or different hole for it to sit on, and also because, as you can see, the I'll bring the tank out and make it easier to show. Unlike the other tank, which I can't find at the moment, where the bung is at the top, at the point, as you can see the bung is further back, and you've got this part around here. So on the factory tank it would actually sit in the hole there, and then it would sit in the hole at the back, and then you put some wood around it to hold it in place. Well, that's obviously, as you know, not going to work. So I need to now measure the distance from the bottom, where you got the hole, the bottom of the got to measure the distance from here to where it's flush with the floor here, and I need to make some blocks for the tank to sit on, and then work out a mount system. I might even use these holes here to zip tie the tank down. I might, just depends on how it will work, but I need to make some blocks for the tank to sit on so it's not facing downwards. I'm just exaggerating the angle, but so yeah, so that's where I'm at with the build so far. I hope you enjoyed this video. Again, as always, if you have any questions, I'm more than happy to do my best to answer them to the best of my ability, and I will see you guys in the next video. Cheers.